Hey guys, this episode is such a huge learning experience for me. I had the pleasure of interviewing Dr. Heather Stone. She is a functional medicine doctor with over 20 years of experience. We discussed the issues around hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's, and we focus on the issues of misdiagnosis and the importance of comprehensive testings. We also discussed her book, The Thyroid Transformation Blueprint, where we discuss the purpose behind writing it and how it has helped women who suffers from these issues get better. This is one empowering episode, guys, not just for women, but everyone who suffers from these aforementioned issues. Very exciting stuff, guys. And without further ado, here's my interview with Dr. Heather Stone. I'm so excited for this, guys. We have an honor of hosting a distinguished guest who stands at the forefront of functional medicine. We have Dr. Heather Stone on the show today. She is a visionary practitioner with over 2 decades of clinical experience. Dr. Stone has dedicated her career to transforming lives of women struggling with hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's. She is also the author of a revolutionary book, The Thyroid Transformation Blueprint, which has been embraced by hundreds of doctors, resulting in restoration of happiness, health, and leanness for numerous women across the world. She is on a mission to redefine healthcare, driven by the belief that the body was born to heal, reminding us that the power to heal always comes from within. I love that. Dr. Heather Stone, welcome to the Ketones and Coffee podcast.
Thank you for having me.
It's such a great satisfaction for me to say that the last part there, that I'm such a believer of, our body can heal from within, right? So it's an honor to have you and grateful for your time, that you're taking your time with us today to just share your story. We got a lot of questions for you today, and my intention for this interview is to, empower people with the knowledge coming from exceptional individuals, and even better if they themselves has a lived experience. So from what I understand, Dr. Stone, you have struggled with these issues yourself and came to a point where you became really frustrated, mainly from the lack of progress going through, conventional treatments. Can you take us back to, the early days that you were struggling, and talk about any takeaways from that experience that led you to starting your own healthcare practice?
Yes. So many years ago, about 20 something years ago, probably 25 by now, I was really struggling with my weight. I was struggling with energy. I had a lot of hormonal imbalances, and my menstrual cycles were all off. And, I tried every diet out there. I mean, I've been on them all, and fat free and, carb free and low, the cabbage soup diet and slim fast and all the diets that you could think of. I've tried
Yeah.
them all. And, I was successful losing weight on those diets, but those diets are fad diets, and you can't live on cabbage soup forever, right? Or grapefruit forever. And so when you get off of those, then the weight all comes back plus a few pounds. And so, I just kept going on this roller coaster, and I was so tired, not only physically tired, but I was tired of this whole roller coaster. And I just knew that my life could be more than what it was turning out to be. So that's what really set me on this mission to figure out, like, what's going on? Why is my body not functioning? And at the time I was going to school, I was pre-med. And I thought, well, I'll just go to, an OB-GYN and figure out what in the world is going on. And at the time, my roommate's dad was a doctor, and he got me into the best OB-GYN in Texas. And so I went in, and I was really excited to figure out what was going on, and let's get to the bottom of this so that I can stop dealing with it and move on my way and continue to pursue medicine. And I went in and I told him all of my symptoms, and I said, I think it could be low thyroid. Now, that was back in the day,
Mm.
that was before Dr. Google. So the only thing I had to go on was like textbooks that you read and, research that you would have to do like physically in the library. And so he said, all right, let's check your thyroid. Now, at the time, I didn't really know to ask for my test results. So I'm assuming that all he ran was a TSH. And I go back in like a couple weeks later, and he's like, it's not your thyroid. And, there's nothing wrong with your thyroid. And by the way, I think that, the reason that you don't have a menstrual cycle is because you exercise too much.
Mm.
And I was like, what is he talking about? So I knew, I had the knowledge to know that when women overtrain and overexercise and our body fat gets below like 10%, then we stop menstruation. Okay, I was 50 pounds heavier than I am today. So I knew that that
Mm.
was not the reason
Mm.
why I had an issue with my menstrual cycles. And then on his way out, he said, by the way, you probably are not going to be able to have children naturally. You're going to need fertility treatments. And that's
Mm.
it. There was no other solution. There was no, like, let's dig deeper to figure out what all is going on, like why you're struggling with this. And I'm grateful for that moment because I knew enough to not believe what he was
Mm.
saying, right? If I didn't know and I just believed what he said at face value, like, it was over exercising and I would never get pregnant naturally, then I could imagine that that would be setting myself up for that type of life, or that's what my expectation would be. But when I had that experience, I was like, all right, this is not how my life is going to be. I am going to figure this out. So that's what put me on this path to figuring out what kind of doctor I wanted to be and what kind of doctor I
Mhm.
did not want to be,
Yeah.
but also figuring out like what is really causing these issues. And so intuitively for me, I'm always and always have been looking for the root cause of why
Mm.
I had a symptom or a disease process. And that's really what has carried me
Mm.
through in helping tens of thousands
Mhm.
of women, is looking for that root cause
Mhm.
that's creating all of these symptoms. And, once I figured it out, I figured out how I was supposed to be eating. I figured out how I was supposed to be exercising. I got my nutrition and my health right and in the optimal
Mhm.
ranges. And I was able to lose, 50 pounds in, that was like 25 years ago. And I've been able to keep it off. And I had two healthy babies who are now, my oldest is 20 and my youngest is 17. So it was quite a while ago
Mhm.
that this transformation really happened. But that's what really fueled my passion
Mm.
and my purpose for really helping other women who are struggling with low thyroid. And eventually I did figure out that yes, I did have low thyroid. I did have Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune condition, which we can get into later. But I figured all of those things out, plus some other underlying issues that were creating the symptom. And then once you start to resolve that, then the body heals.
Mm. When you said that you are somebody who always wanted to look for the root cause of the problem, people who are usually like that are always very curious and ask the right questions. And more often than not, if you're proactive with questioning everything that maybe somebody said something to you, maybe your doctor said something, and you're always curious if that's true or not, more likely that you will find a good outcome at the end of that. Also such a horrible experience with your doctor. I am you know very very curious why doctors would be so sure of something that that you're not gonna be able to carry a baby, and that really boggles my mind that they're just throwing this information that so easily.
Yeah,
That's the
I do
lovely
think it's their
transformation.
experience. Yeah,
Just going by experience.
I don't think necessarily that most doctors are trying to give that information in a
Mhm.
harmful or hurtful way, but it is their
Mhm.
experience. And why is it their
Mhm.
experience? Because in traditional medicine, which there is a time and place for traditional medicine, but when we're dealing with
Agree.
these chronic degenerative diseases or even autoimmune conditions, you know, in this disease drug therapy model,
Mhm.
like they diagnose a disease, they match the drug with the disease, and then usually the outcomes are pretty crappy, right? Especially for
Mhm.
chronic degenerative diseases. And that's just what they see. Now, why he had to
Mhm.
kind of throw that in there and maybe get me prepared for that experience, I don't know.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
I just am so grateful that I knew
Mhm.
intuitively that did
Mhm.
not make any sense to me, and I was going to overcome that because I truly believed in the power that the body is really an amazing,
Mhm.
miraculous organism that
Mhm.
does things that we don't even know and understand how it does.
You seem like a great fit for what you're doing today because you have that such great, intuition, right? I can sense that in you. We'll talk about misdiagnosis here in a second, which, is clearly what happened to you. I'm curious to know, is there a key takeaway or a piece of advice that you can consistently share with women, dealing with these issues like Hashimoto's or low thyroid? Anything that you can pull from your experience, that no, well, number one thing that you can take away.
Yeah, I think that one of the most important things to understand is that
Mhm.
your body communicates with you when
Mhm.
there's an imbalance or something is not right by giving you symptoms. And so, symptoms
Mhm.
are your clue that there is some kind of underlying imbalance. And so, if we continue to try to cover up the symptoms or ignore the symptoms,
Mhm.
they're going to get worse over time, or they're going to show up in another symptom, right? In another way. So it's really important to understand that if you have a symptom, it's your body trying to communicate with you that something is not right. So we shouldn't give up when a practitioner, a healthcare practitioner of any discipline, tells you that there's nothing wrong, but you have symptoms. They've just run out of education. So you need to find another one
Mhm.
that is willing to dig and who has seen
Mhm.
someone who has a symptom to really try to figure out where
Mhm.
the underlying issue is that needs
Mhm.
resolution,
Mhm.
and then the symptoms go away. But know that your body is always trying to protect you. Your body is always working towards survival. It's never working against you. What we may perceive that it's working against us because we can't lose weight or we're tired and we have all of these symptoms, if we would just shift our understanding and
Mhm.
say, okay, I have these symptoms because my body is trying to tell me that something is not right. So we have to dig to figure out where the underlying root cause is to that symptom. Then you can apply a solution and then you
Mhm.
get resolution. But just trying to cover up the symptom and getting angry because what feels like our body is not communicating or
Mhm.
or working properly is not really going to be a good solution. And I think that most women
Mhm.
have tried that. Most people are really
Mhm.
stuck there when they have a thyroid problem. But about 90%, upwards of 98% of women who have low thyroid actually have the autoimmune condition Hashimoto's. And
Mhm.
it's not being looked at, it's not being treated, it's not being addressed
Mhm.
when that is actually the root cause of why they have a thyroid problem in the first place and why they have all of those symptoms. And in traditional medicine, they usually just say it doesn't matter if you have this autoimmune condition, it doesn't matter if you have Hashimoto's, you just need to take this thyroid medication and off you go.
Mhm.
In January, it was Thyroid Awareness Month. And I saw all of these thyroid magazines in the health food store and in the airport,
Mhm.
and I bought it. Just bought some of them so I could see, like, okay, what is the information that these people are getting mainstream? Is there anything different than what their doctors are telling them? And there isn't. Like, one of the things in there, one of the pages says the solution is more thyroid medication. And when you're on the right
Mhm.
medication, you should start to feel
Mhm.
better within a couple of weeks.
Mhm.
And that is just not the case because most women are dealing with an underlying autoimmune condition. It's not really that they just have low thyroid, they have
Mhm.
all of these other issues that are complicating the situation. And if it really was that easy to just get on thyroid medication and your symptoms are going to go away, we would not have a problem. There would
Mhm.
be nobody talking
Yeah.
about low thyroid. There would not be we would not have an audience right here today. And I
Mm-hmm.
will tell you, there are millions of women who are still
Yes.
suffering from all of these symptoms,
Mm-hmm.
even though they're on their thyroid medication and maybe their thyroid markers look normal.
Mm. Now, thank you for sharing that. That's really important to point out. You know, these issues like you talked about, they go undiagnosed or misdiagnosed, and then some doctors, not all, certainly, you know, they can get trigger happy with prescribing medications, which oftentimes, you know, makes the situation a lot worse. So I want to define low thyroid and Hashimoto's, because this topic, you know, very much misunderstood. And as somebody with a lived experience like yourself and actually turned this around, for our listeners who may be seeking clarity right now, could you provide just a clear definition of this condition?
Yes. So primary hypothyroid
Mhm.
means that when your TSH goes up, right, when it's outside of the lab range, it means that your thyroid is not producing enough thyroid hormone. So that's the basic definition of low thyroid, right? Like a 5-year-old could probably diagnose that. You could
Mhm.
teach them if this nut marker is out, that means they have
Yeah.
low thyroid and they need T4 hormone. So that's basically how you get diagnosed, is that you have low thyroid hormones because your TSH is high. It's opposite, right?
Mhm.
And most of the time you just get stuck on thyroid medication, whether it's Synthroid, levothyroxine, Armour, in whatever thyroid medication, and they adjust it and they switch it and try to get these numbers balanced. It's very difficult to get these numbers balanced if you have an underlying autoimmune condition called Hashimoto's. Now, Hashimoto's, again, like I said previously, about 90, upwards of 98% of women who have low thyroid actually have this underlying autoimmune
Mhm.
condition. So if you're out there and you've been diagnosed with low thyroid, odds are you've got Hashimoto's. And most traditional doctors just assume that you have Hashimoto's, but it doesn't change their treatment. Now,
Mhm.
Hashimoto's means that the immune system is attacking and killing the thyroid,
Mm.
right? So when enough thyroid tissue gets destroyed, it can no longer produce enough thyroid hormones. That's when you get diagnosed with low thyroid. For the most part, most people have Hashimoto's long before they ever get diagnosed with low thyroid. And that was my case. I go into the doctor and he looks at my thyroid hormones and he's like, they're normal, but he didn't check the antibodies to see if I had Hashimoto's. And so I had all of the symptoms of low thyroid, but my labs weren't showing technically low thyroid as a diagnosis where I
Mm.
needed thyroid medication. But you can have Hashimoto's for many years before you actually become diagnosed with hypothyroid. Now,
Mm.
many people have Hashimoto's, many. It is more prevalent in women than it is men, and mostly because it'll get triggered when you have big hormonal fluctuations. So I typically see Hashimoto's turn on at puberty. Right. So some women get diagnosed with Hashimoto's, or this turns on as they go through puberty and their hormones start to change. The most common time that we see Hashimoto's turn on is after the birth of a child. Your
Mm.
immune system has to flip flop when you're pregnant so that your immune system recognizes the baby as part of you and doesn't try to get rid of it. So your immune system has to flip flop. And a lot of times that's when Hashimoto's actually turns on. And it gets missed a lot because a lot of the symptoms of low thyroid and Hashimoto's look like, oh, you just had a baby. Like, of course you're tired. You just had a baby. Of course you're struggling
Yeah.
with weight loss. You just had a baby. Of course you
Yeah.
have anxiety, depression, whatever. You just had a baby. And so it gets kind of brushed under the rug there. And then I see a lot of women who are going through menopause or who are postmenopausal. And
Mhm.
again, their hormones are shifting. And they either turn on a Hashimoto's, but more likely they've already turned it on. But the symptoms just get worse because they have a lot of hormonal
Mhm.
fluctuations. So basically, Hashimoto's means your immune system is attacking and killing the thyroid. Now, it's extremely important to understand that if you have one autoimmune condition, you're at risk for developing multiple autoimmune conditions and even thyroid cancer, right?
Mm,
Especially with Hashimoto's. So instead of, just throwing medication at it
yeah.
and then so what happens is they give you thyroid hormones and you still don't feel amazing and you can't sleep, so they give you sleeping meds, and then you still have anxiety and depression and they give you all the psychotropic drugs.
Mm,
So then it's like one drug after another.
yeah.
Meanwhile, your immune system is just destroying your thyroid. And it just leads us into this
Mm,
major vicious cycle as we move through life. But it does not have to be that way. And I think that's
mm.
the biggest takeaway, is that if you have Hashimoto's and if you have underlying hypothyroid, there is resolution and there is life without symptoms.
Thank you for breaking that down. It could really start a domino effect when are on the first medication. It can lead to another, that lead to another, which, as you talked about, it can be a simple reversal. And as if you identify it within yourself, and obviously, I want to actually step back here. What is the challenge for doctors with diagnosing these conditions? Like, what do you think is the challenge?
Well, I think the biggest challenge is that their solutions are very limited, right? So like when
Mm,
they in traditional medicine, when they look at their toolbox, like what are they going to do to help this person? All they have in here is thyroid medication. That's it, right? So
mm,
they're not really trained. It's not the thought process in traditional medicine
yeah.
to get down to the root cause, to look at biochemical pathways and really understand what's
Mm,
going on in the body. How do we optimize function? That is not the way that they're trained. And that's not the way the system is set up. And so, traditionally, doctors, in order for them to even do extensive testing, they will get pushback from insurance companies, from their
mm,
network, because they're running unnecessary labs because it doesn't change the treatment. So, like they can run Hashimoto, they can run thyroid antibodies, but it doesn't change what they're doing. And so, to an insurance company, that's a waste of money, right? So
mm,
in a full thyroid panel, there's 12 different markers that make up a full thyroid panel, and almost always only one of those markers gets run. Why? Because they look in their toolbox and they've got T3 and
mm,
T4 hormones. Sometimes a full, like a thyroid panel with TSH, which is only 4 markers, will get run, but essentially they're just looking at T4. And the reason that they're only doing that is because their solutions are very limited in what they can
mm,
do in this model. And we have to remember that in traditional medicine, it is diagnose the disease, match it with the medication and the prescription or the surgery, and then that is that model. And when you try to use that model but you want a different result, that's when we get really frustrated. When
mm,
we expect that model to go outside of the model, it's not set up for that. And so you have to go and you have to do something different. And I'm not
mm,
saying that these thyroid medications aren't necessary, because they absolutely are. Thyroid hormone, it is the only hormone in the body where there's a receptor site on every single cell in the body. So it literally will affect you from head to toe. And thyroid medication is a piece of the puzzle, right? When
mm,
we're looking at handling underlying autoimmune conditions, you have to get the immune system balanced. So you have to look for all the different triggers that would cause
mm,
the immune system to attack the thyroid,
mm,
right? And low thyroid hormones is one trigger. So it's necessary to make sure that you have enough thyroid hormones. So the goal, at least in my practice, is not necessarily to get off those thyroid hormones, but to make sure they're
mm,
balanced and then dig deeper to figure out, what are the other triggers that someone might be
mm,
dealing with that's causing all of these symptoms and the immune attack on the body. Now, some of those triggers might be insulin resistance, right? We have blood sugar problems. It could be adrenal gland dysfunction. It could be mold toxicity. It could
Mm-hmm.
be heavy metal toxins. It can be underlying infections. It can be environmental toxins. It can be food sensitivities. It can be leaky gut. So,
Mm-hmm.
all of these things are triggers that will impact your immune system. And most of the time, if you're just going to diagnose a disease and give the medication for low thyroid, you're missing all of these underlying imbalances, which are
Mm-hmm.
actually causing the symptoms that most women are struggling with.
Mm. I totally agree that medication has its place, but if there's a way to let our body heal itself, right? And my goal for this is to help women detect symptoms of these issues so they can make informed decisions going forward. Because a lot of times we put it in the hands of our doctors, right? But your doctor may not understand what you have unless you know your own symptoms, right? And again, I don't know if the traditional medicine can truly help somebody heal from within. I don't think that's possible. I think what women have to do is to really take control of their health and really be curious of what they have so that, again, the path to healing and root and be proactive usually results to a better outcome. What are the steps or signs should individuals be attentive to so they can identify if they have Hashimoto's, if they have these condition?
Yeah, so some of the symptoms would be fatigue,
Mhm.
right? Like you just have low energy. It doesn't even mean that you have to have low energy throughout the day, but like if you have low energy, at any time during the day or you're not sleeping well at night. Many women have a hard time falling asleep and staying asleep. Many women also have anxiety and depression, which it seems hard to have both of those, but they do have anxiety and depression. They'll have heart palpitations. They'll have digestive issues like constipation or diarrhea, or maybe they have them both alternating. Those are the main symptoms of someone who might have Hashimoto's. And you might, in hot flashes, I mean, it's hard. It's like every symptom in the book could be categorized as low thyroid because, like I said, thyroid hormones affect every single cell in the body. And it's really
Mm,
important. I want to kind of dovetail off of something that you said. I think gone are the times where we just walk into a doctor's office and completely entrust them with our health. I think that we have to trust them on some level, especially maybe when we're in emergency. But when you're
mhm.
trying to optimize
Agree.
health, that is not the goal of our healthcare system. We have a sick care system. So we go to the doctor when we are in an emergency or our body cannot overcome something, maybe to get us over the hump. But if you want to optimize your health, if you want to feel amazing and you want to live a great quality of life as long as you can, you have to educate yourself, take control of your health care, and you have to direct the decisions. I think it's a mistake to give your health something that is so precious,
Mm,
something that is only given to us. It's almost like the most valuable
mm,
thing that we're ever given, and to give it to someone else is I think that that's one of the biggest mistakes we make,
mm.
especially now that we have so much information. We have so much information at our fingertips. Like, 100 years ago, we didn't have Google. You would have to
Right.
literally go to medical school to figure all of
Yeah.
this stuff out. Now we can just look things up, and we can look it up like 500 sources if we wanted to. So now we have no excuse, and we need to be
Yeah.
taking our health into our own hands and really drive our health care and not feel like we are at the disposal of our sick care system.
Mm. I wanted to ask you what's a surefire symptom that you have Hashimoto's, but it feels like it is a collection of these symptoms, right? If you have all of these symptoms at once, it is time to get tested, right?
Yeah,
Is
I
there a
think one thing I
surefire one,
didn't say, which
though?
is really, yeah, one thing I didn't say that was important. It's important to know that the thyroid is responsible for regulating your metabolic rate. So if you feel like your metabolism is slowed down, what does that mean? It means you
Mm.
have low energy. It means that you can't lose weight. It means that you're probably
Oh.
putting on weight. It means that you're tired. So everything is slowed down. It means that your gut motility is slowed down, so constipation. So if you can think of it in terms of the thyroid is regulating your metabolic rate. And if you feel like your metabolism is slowed down, that's usually when we start to look at the thyroid.
Mm. Okay. Okay. So, because I know people who has been on a low carb diet that can't lose weight still.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's a surefire
So like
symptom.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to, we can talk about that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
so many women are on a low carb diet. They've tried to go into ketosis. They're in paleo, right? They're doing
Mm-hmm.
paleo. They may lose weight initially, but then they can't lose weight after like the first, I don't know, month or so, the 30 days, and they get stuck in this big plateau. And if we go even deeper as to what's happening, when you eat food, right, when you eat food and it turns into sugar, it's in your bloodstream, right, you have glucose in your bloodstream, and your cells take that glucose and they turn it into energy, or ATP, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we use, every single metabolic process in the body requires ATP or energy. All right. So as a result of your body making ATP or energy, there comes a byproduct, right? Like a waste product or garbage. Kind of like when we cook something in the kitchen and we come up with this amazing meal, we may have the onion peels and the garlic peels and the seeds of the bell pepper or whatever. We have like waste products that we have to get rid of, garbage. If we are not good at getting rid of the garbage and the garbage starts to pile up, this is what we call reactive oxygen species. This is what you might have heard as oxidative stress. This advances the aging process. So the body's like, hey, we have all of this garbage that I can't get rid of, and my cells are going to start dying because the garbage is so high and toxic. We need to slow down the metabolic rate. We cannot keep up with this garbage right now. So we were going to dial everything back. So what happens? Your cells become insulin resistant, right? So you start to have higher blood sugar. Your body starts to take that T4 that your thyroid's making and it converts it into reverse T3. So now you're under converting T4 to T3. So everything is slowing down. Your gut motility is slowing down. So a lot of times, if we just think through, well, why, if someone was on low carbs and they're not eating sugar, are they struggling with weight loss? A lot of times we also will see, okay, they've got a blood sugar problem, and their blood sugar problem doesn't necessarily make sense with what they're eating, but what are all of their detoxification pathways looking like? What does this health of the cell look like? And as you start to clear out that garbage and you open up all of those detoxification pathways, they start to reverse the insulin resistance patterns, right? They start to be able to convert T4 to T3, and it starts increasing their metabolic rate again. Their energy starts to change. They start to lose weight. And it's really important for women to know that you have to think differently, because we've been programmed so much that the cause of all of our issues is because we have a weight problem. But we have to realize that our weight problem is because we have underlying imbalances, right? We have an underlying dysfunction, likely at the cellular level, that's causing us to have this extra weight gain. So we can try to force our body to lose weight, but if you don't fix the underlying issues, it's going to be very difficult. So
Mm-hmm.
fixing those underlying issues and working with your body to increase the metabolic rate and reverse the insulin resistance, and then the body can start to convert your thyroid hormones properly, that is what allows you to lose weight and keep it off. It is not
Mm-hmm.
going to be a fad diet. It is not going to be a surgery. It's not going to be semaglutide, which is, all the craze right now. But if you will look and understand the metabolic processes and how the body works, it's always trying to protect you. So if you
Mhm.
can think about that, you're not clearing out toxins, and your body is becoming a toxic soup, and your cells are dying off faster, and you're advanced aging.
Mhm. Mhm.
So you go and you try to make the body lose weight. You try to make the body, work the way that you want it to work. And it just continues down that path, and it creates so much frustration.
That makes it so clear. I hope you guys are taking notes because I am learning myself. This is so exciting for me. Put your notes up
Mhm.
or review this later on. But hope you guys are taking notes. So interesting stuff that we have here today. This thing around. You got the blueprint. It's a whole book, right? But let's
Yes.
let's summarize this and quickly for our listeners. Let's lay out the 7 pillars that you have on their book for thyroid transformation and highlight any one or two you feel are most important on their journey.
Yes. So the first pillar, just kind of what you said, you have decided that you want to go down this journey and take control of your health. So the first pillar is that you have to have goals, and they have to be clearly defined goals, and you have to have true motivations for why you want to achieve these goals, right? It can't be that I just want to lose 30 pounds or 50 pounds or 100 pounds. It has to be that I want to live a long life. I want to see my grandkids grow up and get married. For me, my motivation, and I have a mission to change the face of healthcare and help as many women as possible through this journey. So I have a really big mission which drives my goals, right? So whenever I feel like maybe I can't do it, or it's a weak moment, or I want to give up, I just think about, no,
Mhm.
I have a huge mission and a huge drive. So that's what's going to keep you moving forward with your goals. The number two, which is absolutely huge, and it's really important to understand and realize that this
Mhm.
blueprint, the pillars have to be done in order. We can't skip from one pillar to the other because the pillars build upon each other. So if you don't have goals and motivations, you're going to be dead in the water. You're going to give up in 2 weeks, which is why most of
Yeah.
us, our New Year's resolutions, like I think the third Friday in January is National Quit Day. Like most people literally quit with their New Year's resolutions 3 weeks into the year. I'm like, we can
Yeah,
do
I heard
so
that.
much better. But yeah, it's just because we don't have motivations behind the goals, and they're not specific and measurable. But let me move on to pillar two, because pillar two is that you have to have comprehensive testing. And when we're dealing with thyroid, now that you guys that are listening know that it's not just a thyroid problem, the thyroid affects everything in the body. To be myopic and only look at the thyroid is not comprehensive testing. I don't care if you did the 12 thyroid markers that make up a full panel, you have to do absolutely comprehensive testing throughout the whole body, right? I think our blood work is over 319 different markers that we do just on the blood work. And then we look at hormones and adrenal function, and we look at mold toxicity, and the testing is extremely comprehensive so that we know what path you're going to go down, so that you can go from A to B in mostly a linear fashion. Now, health is never linear, but in the most concise way as possible. So really making sure that you're testing, because what happens, especially with women, and those ladies who are listening know what I'm talking about, we go to the health food store and we're like, oh, somebody said it was my adrenals, and that helps with, energy. So you have a couple of supplements for that, and maybe it's B12, and oh, I need melatonin for sleeping, and maybe it's this. And so, I used to giggle to myself when I would see a patient in the office that would come in with 2 bags of supplements. I'm like, oh, that's a thyroid patient, because we are glomming on to all of these different things that we think could be the next answer, right? Or we're buying every magic pill and magic supplement or magic workout program on Instagram and Facebook, hoping that this is going to be the answer. So we're
Mm.
just guessing because we don't know what's going on and what's going on at a root cause. It's not enough just to know you have low thyroid. The question is why. It's not enough even to know that you have a blood sugar problem.
Mm.
The question becomes, well, why do you have a blood sugar problem? So it's almost like becoming that 3-year-old again
Yeah.
and getting curious about why. If you have to keep asking why until you get to pretty much the dead end where there is actually a resolution and a solution to help the body through this process. So
Mhm.
pillar 2 is comprehensive testing. Pillar 3 is a comprehensive diagnosis and analysis. Not just you have low thyroid, not just you have insulin resistance, prediabetes, diabetes. It's like, where are the underlying imbalances? It's not really even about the ICD-9 or ICD-10 code, right? Like that they're going to submit to insurance. It's like, where are the underlying imbalances? Where are the vitamin, mineral deficiencies? Where are these things that the body is needing to help facilitate healing?
Mhm.
So it's
Mhm.
not just a label. It's really about understanding physiology and where are the imbalances. Um, and then pillar number 4 is that you have to have customized treatment plan. So, we are used to traditional medicine giving you a treatment plan based on the diagnosis, right? And this is a very broad diagnosis. You've got low thyroid, you've got low hormones, here's your thyroid hormones, and you go out the door. You have diabetes, well, here's the diabetic cocktail. You get metformin, you get a blood pressure med, and you get a statin drug, and off you go. And then you're wearing this label across your head every time you go into the doctor's office, and
Mhm.
they kind of pigeonhole you into that diagnosis, and that's what they're looking at. But if we looked at all of the labs and we saw all of the underlying imbalances, not just the label of the diseases, then you create a treatment plan based on those labs, then that would lead you to everybody has to have their own treatment plan. It is not a protocoled thing for you if you have
Yeah.
Hashimoto's or if you have thyroid, like you go onto this treatment plan. It's okay, you have Hashimoto's and low thyroid. Let's get down to why. What are the triggers? What are you dealing with? And then let's create a customized treatment plan based on that. And
Mhm.
then pillar number 5 is that you do need a coach. Like I said earlier, now we are living in a sea of information. And
Yep.
used to, many years ago, we had a lack of information. Now we have an overabundance of information, and it's really hard to sift through all of that information and figure out what to believe because there's a lot of things that I'm like, oh my gosh, I hope nobody reads that. And then there's some things I'm like, oh, this is really good information. And others I'm like, that's like horrible. So it's like, well, what do you believe and what's going to work for you? So if you had somebody who has been down that road, who's worked with thousands of patients, who has a lot of experience, then you can, and somebody that you trust to guide you on this journey, that is going to get you from A to B in the fastest possible way, right? I mean, I've been working on this for 22 years, and thank goodness, because it's not going to take my patients 22 years to figure this out, right? So
Mm.
you have to have a coach, but there's another part to that is that you do have to be coachable because we have to trust the people that have come before us and had great results, and we have to be able to
Mhm.
implement, and we have to be able to follow through. Otherwise, the
Yeah.
results are going to be minimal, and you're going to be stuck in that process.
Mhm.
All right. And then you need to do continued testing. It's not good enough just to test once. You have to continue to test throughout, like for me, we do labs probably every 45 to 60 days. If we're looking at hormones, maybe every 90 days, so that we can make sure that we are moving in the right direction and we're recustomizing as we go. But if you were to focus on the pillars, the top 5 are probably the most important. And then I
Mhm.
think 6 and 7 is just the continued testing and the
Mm.
continued customization throughout the treatment plan until you reach
Mhm.
your end goals. But it's important because most people say, okay, I have a goal, and then they try to apply a solution. So they're skipping
Mhm.
pillar 2 and 3. And that's when they get really frustrated because they don't get the results that they're expecting because they're guessing at
Mhm.
what the root cause could be. And
Yeah.
if they guess right, it's just luck. And
Mm.
I don't like to treat my health with luck,
Yeah.
nor any of my patients.
Mm. Yeah, like you said, this is a complete transformation and you got to be coachable at the end of the day. This is a change in lifestyle. And I always tell people, hey, what are you willing to give up to heal and get yourself back, right? I imagine that it has to be, the patient has to be 100% committed to themselves to getting better.
Yeah.
In your
Yeah.
experience, though, what is the right mindset to be in? Like, do you
Well,
think?
it's interesting. Yeah. I talk a lot about mindset and I talk a lot about the subconscious mind and how the subconscious
Mhm.
mind works, right? There's 3 rules that your subconscious mind lives by. Now, if you're not
Mhm.
familiar with the subconscious is, you have kind of 2 parts of your brain or consciousness. You have, the conscious mind, which you're sitting here listening to us talking. I'm using my
Mhm.
conscious brain to carry on a conversation. It's what allows me to go from here to here and treat patients and pay bills and all that
Mhm.
stuff. The thing that we're thinking about during the day. The subconscious mind is what's always running in the background. It's almost like your robot. It's what's still running in the background even when you're sleeping, and it kind of guides you and helps you make decisions and helps you steer you away from danger, but it lives by 3 rules. It lives by to keep you safe, to keep you away from pain, and to keep you alive. All
Mhm.
right. So to keep you alive, to keep you safe, and to keep you away from pain. And it's like a robot. It doesn't reason. It takes your past experiences, even when you were like, mostly it lives by past
Mhm.
experiences that you've had when you were like 6 and 7. And it still keeps these programs and these belief systems in. And it's like, is that painful? Is that going to make her die? Is that going to is that going to keep her safe? That's all it's thinking about. And so you have to work with your subconscious mind to help you keep moving through this journey. For example, like if I told a patient that they needed to get off of gluten, right? Gluten is extremely inflammatory. The research shows if you have Hashimoto's, every time you eat gluten, it causes the immune system to attack your thyroid. And now they're finding the bottom part of your brain, the cerebellum. So every time you eat gluten, it causes an immune attack on the body.
Mm.
So, like if in your mind, like let's take gluten is like in wheat, all right? And then let's say, okay, oh my gosh, you can't have donuts anymore because donuts have wheat. Now, donuts have all kinds of other things that we shouldn't be eating, but let's just call it gluten, okay? So, in your subconscious mind, if you looked at that donut like rat poison, if you saw that donut like, oh my gosh, every time I eat that, my immune system is going to kill my brain and thyroid. Your subconscious mind is like, oh, okay, we need to keep you alive and I need to keep you away from pain. So it's going to be super easy for you to stay off of that donut. Like literally, you could put a dozen donuts on my desk and I would never touch it. But if in your mind you were like, oh my God, how am I ever going to stay away from donuts? They're my
Right.
most favorite thing on the planet. I can't believe Dr. Heather is going to like make me stay away from donuts. Your subconscious mind says that is extremely painful. It is more
Mhm.
painful for you to stay away from donuts than it is for you to eat the donut. So your
Mhm.
subconscious mind is going to go to work to say, hey, only one doesn't hurt. Just have one little bite. It's going to
Mhm.
be less painful if you eat a little bit of it. And so you're going to constantly be sabotaging yourself if you don't realize that your subconscious mind is trying to keep you away from pain. and it responds to the pictures that we see and the words that we say to
Mhm.
ourselves. We have a lot of control over it, but most people don't even realize that it's running their lives. And so we feel like we are out of control. We're kind of just walking around
Mhm.
like a pinball. But if you
Mhm.
start to change the way that you think and you start to change your belief systems around the foods that we can and can't eat, around the
Mhm.
way that we see exercise, around the way that our body is working to protect us and it's not fighting us, if we start
Mhm.
to change our mindset in that way, the subconscious mind works with you and it makes
Mhm.
this journey much more
Mhm.
enjoyable than it is painful.
Work with your subconscious. This is science. This is not woo-woo stuff. This is science. Your
That's right.
subconscious mind.
It's pretty crazy. Yeah, it's really crazy how much research there is behind this, but it's also just as crazy how little we know as a
Yep.
society to actually work with this part of our brain to help us build the life that we really want. And it
Mhm.
is pretty amazing that most of us are walking around without that knowledge.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's your these concepts are very new to me. Working with your subconscious. I don't think anybody has talked about that before. That you can actually work with your subconscious. And I always tell people, just from your mindset got to shift from I can't have that to I don't want that, right? The shift that we were talking about.
Yeah.
So simple, but you can
Or even
actually.
or
Mhm.
even something better, instead
Mhm.
of I don't want that, it's I'm choosing not to have that.
Mm.
Right? Like if it's your choice and no one's forcing it upon
Yeah.
you and it's your choice, then your subconscious mind is going to work with you. But if
Mm.
it's something that is done to you or you see it as a punishment, like I
Right.
can't have that, then you're going to self sabotage every
Mhm.
time.
Yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree. That's where people gets, held back, right? What's hold back people from completely transforming their life, right? Is just that simple thing that is stopping us. And you could do the practices today and, switch that mindset. I know you're very particular with about who you work in your practice. What are the basic criteria you use to make sure someone is a good fit in your practice?
Yeah. So, yep, I typically look at two things. Number one is, are they a good clinical fit? So we do extensive lab testing so that I can see where are the underlying imbalances. Can I see imbalances that we can attribute to the symptoms and the disease processes they have? And is the path forward clear to me from a clinical perspective? Right? As long as we have that met, then I move to the next criteria, which is, do I think that they're going to be a good fit personally? So, number one is, do they have hope that they can get better? And that means,
Mm.
do they believe that they can achieve the goals that they set? Um, or is this where they don't believe it at all and they're just going to use this to prove again to themselves that they are stuck in the place that they're stuck in? So I don't
Mhm.
want that patient because we're never going to get anywhere. Number
Mhm.
two, their health has to be their number one priority. And I think a lot of women struggle with this because we are used to putting everybody's needs before ours. We are
Mhm.
used to, and it's genetically ingrained to us to make sure that we take care of everybody else. And then if there's time, we will take care of ourselves. And then we
Mhm.
also think, well, it's selfish if I take care of
Right.
myself and I'm not taking care of my spouse or my kids or my mom and dad and everybody else on the planet. But I will tell you that taking care of your health is one of the most selfless things that you can do, because
Yeah.
I can guarantee you,
Mhm.
if you do not feel well and you have all of these symptoms, you are not showing up for those people 100%. Your life is going to be short
Mhm.
because you're not
Mhm.
putting your health as your number one priority. And so we have to shift that in our minds. And sometimes it takes a little practice because we've been, putting ourselves last for decades. And I also will challenge these ladies who have a hard time putting themselves first or
Mhm.
making their health a number one priority. Sometimes we use it as an excuse to stay right where we're at because in society it's okay. It's kind of socially accepted. Like, I haven't been taking care of myself because, I have young kids. Or I haven't been
Mhm.
taking care of myself because I've had to take care of my ailing parents or something like that. And so we, are always like, oh, okay, well, that's totally fine. I'm here to tell you it's
Mhm.
not time, it's not fine, and it's time to start putting yourself first and making your health your
Mhm.
number one priority. When you do that and you make that shift, that's going to exponentially improve the
Mhm.
results that you're getting with whatever it is that you're doing. And then, the
Mhm.
last criteria for me is, can they implement? Are they
Mhm.
willing to, and can they implement the things that will be required in their treatment plan? But the number one thing is, do they have hope that they can get better? And is their health their
Mhm.
number one priority? Because if their health is their number
Mhm.
one priority, then they're going to be able to implement some way or another,
Yeah.
whatever it is that I'm going to ask them to do.
Mhm. Yeah, they gotta believe that they can get healthy, and they gotta believe the protocols that you know what also helps is when you know that the person who is gonna help you has that lived experience who actually reversed the condition. And that's why that's the
Yeah.
correct path, is because just find the people who reverse the condition, find the people who has that lived experience, and that's the easier path to take. Yeah, believe that you can get healthy. And sometimes, yeah, you can get really you can feel really selfish when you're taking care of yourself. But you're so right when you said, the most unselfish thing is you taking care of yourself, because you can't show up 100% at the time. You can't help other people without helping yourself first, right? So, and for some of us, we really don't know that we're not 100% because we're so used to not being 100% for so many years. And I feel that that's one of the
Yep.
reasons why too, that people
Yeah.
don't really know how to
Well,
feel
I
good,
think
right?
it's yeah, I think it's important because we start to reset our normal, right?
Mhm.
Especially a lot of us women who have a lot to do and we're working or taking care of our house and taking care of our kids or whatever. We don't have time to sit around and complain and not feel good.
Mhm.
So we just reset our normal and try to push through until we're
Mm.
literally falling over. So resetting our normal, and we really forgot what it feels like to feel
Mhm.
amazing. And so many of these ladies have been feeling so bad for decades. They have no idea that they could actually feel like completely different.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. You can feel much better. You can feel much better. There's hope. There's hope. There's a lot of hope. Look for those people who have transformed their lives. If you are looking to heal, look for those people who has reversed the condition, put their condition in remission. That's when you know you're on the right path. I know you have a Facebook group that you and your team runs. It's a pretty big Facebook group, which is called Happy, Healthy, and Lean. I love it. What has surprised you the most about this
Yep.
group?
Oh, the most surprising thing about this group is how encouraging and uplifting they are to each other. We are very careful about making sure that this group doesn't turn into a bunch of complaining and griping and pulling people down, but helping people spiral up. Even when they might be down, like, what can they do to keep moving forward? The other thing that I think is so awesome, we're at like 23,000 members in this group, and
Mhm.
I
Wow.
do master classes. And this year I'm doing a master class every month. I just finished with a losing weight with low thyroid master class. I have a 5-day thyroid transformation master class. And the thing that has surprised me the most is that I try to give as much value to these ladies as possible. And these master classes are free. The Facebook group is free. And the ladies, I have never seen them before, some of these, and they're posting pre and post pictures and testimonials of losing 50 pounds and feeling
Wow.
better just by implementing the things and the tools that they learn in these different master classes. And I also do Thyroid Thursday, which I come on for about 30 minutes to an hour every single Thursday. day in that group, try to giving them as much information as possible. So ladies that I have never even actually met are starting to transform their lives just by being in this group. They're getting information, they're getting education, they're starting to take action, and they're surrounding themselves with like minds. And that is very, very, very important.
That's an amazing way to, I believe in the power of proximity. Surround yourself with people that has the same goals, and eventually you'll get there. And
Yeah.
if you talk to people who has the same goals every single day, it's only a matter of time till you actually manifest that for yourself. So I love that. If you guys want to join that, it's going to be all linked in the description box below, so you guys can check that out and join this group. So, well, thank you so much for sharing all of that. I learned a lot from you today, Dr. Heather. I appreciate you coming on and just sharing your story and just being so genuine with us today. So thank you so much.
You're so welcome. And I had a great time, and I hope it was very helpful for those ladies listening.
Definitely it is. I learned a lot from you. So thank you so much. So yeah, if there's anything else that you want to talk about, feel free, but everything will be linked in the description box below. Dr. Heather's new book is also linked down in the description box below, so you guys can grab a copy for yourself. Yeah, so Dr. Heather, is there anything else that we missed today?
I don't think so. I think, the parting comment that I would have here is that I just want all of those ladies to know, and men who might be listening, that you are born to heal.
Mm,
And so if you have been struggling with symptoms or disease processes and just not feeling well, just know that you haven't gotten down to the root cause of the problem yet, but your body is born to heal, and it will do that, as it just needs a little bit of help.
that's beautiful. Thank you so much for that, Dr. Heather. And yeah, thank you so much. If you guys, yeah, everything will be linked in the down in the description box below, guys. Check out the book, check out the group, connect with Dr. Heather. Everything's down in the description box below. All right, Dr. Heather, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, bye bye. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Ketones and Coffee podcast with Dr. Heather Stone as we discussed understanding the role of thyroid in metabolism and understanding the body's metabolic processes. I have provided the links to Dr. Heather Stone's work and her socials. Please see the show note captions below. If you're learning from or enjoying the podcast, please subscribe to wherever you listen to your podcast, which is a great zero-cost way to support the podcast. And you can also leave us up to 5-star reviews on both Spotify and Apple. If you have questions, please reach out to me on Instagram or our new website at ketocoachlawrence.com.